Too many people believe that success is only for the lucky few. But the truth is, every empire started as a sketch on a napkin, a side hustle in a garage, or a crazy idea that everyone thought would fail. In this video, I'm going to share with you some inspiring success stories of entrepreneurs who turned struggle into success. And no, we're not talking about Oprah, Elon, or Steve Jobs. You already heard those. We're diving into the success stories that will open your eyes to what's possible for you. Think about this. What separates someone who builds a billion-dollar company from the person who just talks about ideas at a coffee shop? It's not resources, it's resourcefulness, it's mindset. And these stories will prove it. And the first story that I want to share with you is the story of Sara Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx. Sara Blakely, the woman who turned $5,000 into a billion-dollar empire. Sara was not born into wealth. She was selling fax machines door to door. Yes, knocking on doors, facing rejection every single day. In fact, she got so used to hearing no that it became her training ground for entrepreneurship. One day, she was getting ready for a party. She wanted her clothes to look smooth, but she didn't like how the traditional pantyhose showed through the open-toed shoes that she was wearing. So she grabbed a pair of scissors and cut the feet off. That one small act, what most people would laugh at and call it silly, sparked this billion-dollar idea. She didn't have investors. She didn't have industry connections. She didn't even know how to write a patent for her invention. But here's where her story gets powerful. Instead of letting those obstacles stop her, she stayed persistent. She drove to North Carolina. She knocked on the doors of textile mills and just kept pitching her idea. Most factories turned her down until finally one owner said yes because his daughters liked the idea and they believed in the product. Fast forward, Spanx became the first brand of its kind to be sold in Neiman Marcus. And then Oprah had it on her show as one of her favorite things. And suddenly it exploded worldwide. Sara became the youngest self-made female billionaire at that time. Sara didn't just cut the feet off of some pantyhose. She cut the excuses out of her life. She removed the limits that everyone else accepted and revealed a new way forward. The lesson is, innovation is not always about inventing something new. It's about improving what already exists. And often, the best ideas are born out of frustration with something that you wished worked better. If you've ever thought, I wish someone would fix this, maybe that someone is you. Business owners, are you struggling to make more revenue and profit? Well, I want to invite you to the Millionaire Makers Network. It's 100% free to join. You can join the network today and learn how to make more profit in your business so that you can make a higher income, so that you can finally earn what you're worth and stop leaving money on the table. Have more disposable income so you can enjoy life's extras without stressing about bills. Make more income to invest so that you can have the ultimate freedom so your money works for you, building wealth and buying back your time. Have profits growing predictably so that you can scale with confidence, knowing your business brings in consistent cash flow every month. Just click the link in the description to join for free. Now, back to the video. The second story that I want to share with you is the story of Howard Schultz and Starbucks. Howard Schultz is the man behind Starbucks. Howard didn't grow up sipping lattes. He grew up in the projects of Brooklyn. His father was a World War II vet who worked tough, low-paying jobs like truck driving and factory work. When his father broke his ankle on his job, he lost both his income and his health insurance. And the family had no safety net. That experience burned something into Howard. He promised himself that one day he would build a company where employees were treated like partners, not disposable workers. Years later, Schultz was working for a small coffee bean company in Seattle called Starbucks, but it was not the Starbucks that we know today. They only sold coffee beans and equipment, not espresso, no comfy chairs, no music, just coffee beans. Then came the turning point. On a trip to Milan, Italy, Howard saw something magical. In every neighborhood, espresso bars were not just serving coffee, they were serving connection. People were not just rushing in and out, they were laughing, talking, doing business, meeting friends. These cafes were the heartbeat of the community. And Howard had a vision. What if America had a place like this? Not just a cup of coffee, but a place between home and work where people could connect. A third place. And that's what Starbucks is known as, the third place. Now, at first, the original Starbucks owners were not interested at all in this idea. They did not believe that Americans would pay more for an experience. But Schultz, he would not let it go. He raised money and he eventually opened his own cafe inspired by the Italian model. And eventually, he went back and bought Starbucks outright. And so now he owns Starbucks outright. And fast forward to today, Starbucks is not just a coffee company. It's a global brand with over 30,000 stores worldwide. And the reason is not the coffee. It's the culture. It's the community, the consistency that Schultz built into the experience. Now, Schultz didn't invent coffee. We already had coffee. Coffee has been around for centuries. And so he did not invent it. But what he did was he took something like a campfire, a place where people gather naturally, and he rebuilt it for modern life. And so Starbucks became a global fireside, a place where people could connect over something warm and familiar. Here's the lesson. Sometimes success is not about creating a brand new product. It's about reimagining the experience around something ordinary, something that already exists. Schultz didn't just sell coffee. He sold connection. And people will always pay more for an experience that makes them feel like they're a part of something bigger. All right, story number 3. Jan Koum, the co-founder of WhatsApp. I think I'm saying it right. Jan, it's either Jan or John Koum. Either way, this is the man who went from food stamps to a $19 billion exit. Jan was born in a small village in Ukraine, back when it was still under the Soviet rule. Life was tough. His house didn't even have hot water, and he grew up knowing what it felt like to have very little. When his family immigrated to the United States, they landed in California. But they still struggled. Go figure. You struggle in California. Because it's hard to live in California. However, it's hard to live in California, but it's also a great opportunity to make something out of yourself. And so it's that double-edged sword in California. And so his mom worked as a babysitter. Jan swept floors at a grocery store. And to make ends meet, they relied on food stamps. But here's where the story turns. Jan got curious about computers. He taught himself programming by reading manuals that he picked up from used bookstores. No fancy degree, no private tutors, just pure grit and self-education. And that curiosity eventually led him to a job at Yahoo as an engineer. If you fast forward a few years, Jan saw a problem that hit close to home. International phone calls were ridiculously expensive, especially for immigrants who were trying to stay in touch with family abroad. Jan thought, well, why can't people just message each other for free across the borders, across the world without limits? That's the question he thought to himself. And that frustration became the seed of WhatsApp. He and his co-founder, Brian Acton, started small. They weren't trying to build this big, flashy social network. They wanted something simple, a clean, reliable way for people to send messages to each other. No ads, like the social media today. No ads, no games, no clutter, just connection. But here's the funny thing. In 2009, when Jan went to apply for a job at Facebook, he got rejected. Facebook turned him down, rejected him, didn't give him a job. And only 5 years later, in 2014, Facebook came knocking to buy WhatsApp for $19 billion. Wow. That's one of the biggest tech acquisitions in history. Jan took the broken telephone line of his childhood, the silence of not being able to afford communication, and he rewired it into a bridge that connected billions of people. The lesson here is your deepest frustrations often point to the greatest opportunities. Jan didn't start WhatsApp because he wanted to get rich. He built it because he wanted to solve a problem that he knew personally. He was personally familiar with this problem. And that authenticity is what spread like wildfire. All right, story number 4. Daymond John with FUBU. Daymond John, a man who turned a few sewing needles and a dream into this global fashion empire. Damon grew up in Queens, New York, raised by a single mother. Money was always tight. But instead of letting it hold him back, he turned it into motivation. He saw the hip-hop culture exploding all around him. Music videos, street style swag. But he noticed something. None of the clothing brands truly represented the culture. And so what he noticed is they were wearing someone else's labels, not their own, not the culture. And so Damon decided to change that. He started sewing hats in his mother's house. Not in a factory, not in a big workshop, but in his mother's house. Just a living room with a lot of hustle. He made 90 hats by hand. And then he sold them on the streets of Queen. And he earned $800 in one single day. And that was the spark. That was all the spark he needed to know that this was going to be something big. But here's where it gets even more powerful. Damon didn't have millions of dollars for marketing. Instead, he leaned on his creativity. He gave clothes to his friends who happened to hang around rap stars. And soon, those same artists, they were rocking the FUBU in their music videos. Now that's the marketing you need. And so, without even realizing it, Damon had pioneered influencer marketing way before Instagram influencers were ever even invented. With his mom's house mortgaged to fund the production, Damon kept grinding until FUBU, now FUBU is short for us, by us. Damon just kept grinding until FUBU became a global brand. At the height of FUBU, it generated over $350 million in annual revenue. And it became a cultural movement, not just a clothing brand. Damon didn't just stitch fabric together. He stitched culture into the clothing. He wove identity, pride, belonging to something into every scene. That's why people didn't just wear FUBU, they lived it. The lesson here is you don't need massive capital to compete. You need clarity, culture, and community. Damon proved that when you align your brand with your people's identity, you're not just selling products, you're selling pride. And pride is priceless. And the fifth and final story that I'm going to tell you about is Colonel Harlan Sanders with KFC. Finally, let's talk about one of the most unlikely success stories in entrepreneurship. Colonel Harlan Sanders, the man behind Kentucky Fried Chicken, and now I think they just call it KFC. But here's what most people don't realize. Colonel Sanders didn't even start KFC until later in his life. He had a tough road. Born in Indiana in 1890, his father died when he was only 6 years old, and from then on, he cooked and cared for his younger siblings while his mother worked. And he dropped out of school in the 7th grade. And so Colonel Sanders only has a 7th grade education. He worked odd jobs just to help take care of his family. He was a farmhand, a streetcar conductor, a railroad fireman, and even a gas station attendant. And so by his mid-60s, now he's in his 60s now, he was not a millionaire. He was actually broke in his 60s. And he was living off of, get this, he was living off $105 a month Social Security check. That's it. A Social Security check for $105 a month. That was his salary. That was what he had to live off of. But here's where grit meets destiny. Sanders believed in one thing, his fried chicken recipe. A unique blend of 11 herbs and spices. You've heard of it. He started knocking on restaurant doors, offering to cook for owners and their customers for free. He started offering his chicken for free just to prove how good it was. And here's the brutal part. He was rejected more than 1,000 times. Imagine that. 1,000 doors slammed in your face. 1,000 people telling you no. 1,000 reasons to quit. But Sanders did not stop. He kept going until finally one restaurant says yes. And you know all it takes is for you to get one yes. That one yes turned into many yeses. And eventually it turned into this global franchise that we know of today called KFC. With thousands of locations worldwide in over 145 countries. And so Colonel Sanders, he knew he had something. Colonel Sanders was like a farmer planting seeds late in the season. Everyone else thought the soil was too dry, the time was too short, and the harvest impossible. But he kept planting anyway. And his persistence grew a worldwide harvest. The lesson is simply this. It's never too late to start. And rejection is not the end. It's the test before the breakthrough. And Sanders proved that age is just a number and persistence is the real recipe for success. These stories prove one thing. Success doesn't belong to the smartest, the richest, or the youngest. It belongs to the ones who keep showing up, keep solving problems, keep believing when everyone else quits. And so let me ask you, what's your Spanx? What's your Starbucks? Your WhatsApp? Your FUBU? Your KFC? What is it? What is your idea? Drop your answer in the comments below if this inspired you. And hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that their dream is not dead. It's just waiting to be built. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.